Do you ever wonder what computers are made of and where they come from? The answer to this is the semiconductor industry. It is responsible for the manufacturing of processors and chips that make up electronics such as laptops, smartphones, and tablets. One of the most pressing issues within this industry is sustainability. Semiconductor manufacturing is responsible for tons of carbon emissions, e-waste, and water usage. Being in the heart of Silicon Valley, the technology industry affects California residents through its impact on climate change. Intel, one of the leaders in the semiconductor industry, has paved a sustainable way for other companies to follow in order to lower this impact. Although this seems ideal, lots of planning goes into this, and employees may not fully accept sustainability. Since efficient technology costs more, cost reduction strategies of cutting employee hours and wages may be utilized by managers, which puts employee financial well-being at risk. Members of Intel's leadership should do whatever it takes to implement sustainable practices within the company because of the imminent threat that climate change poses for California and Intel's part in worsening it, but also find a way to make sure that employees are not negatively affected. This infographic shows how much Intel has dedicated to improving their impact on the environment. Statistics shown such as 3 billion kilowatts of energy saved since 2012 and zero hazardous waste sent to landfills by 2020 show how committed they are as a company to sustainability. The leaders of Intel are doing all they can to combat climate change, and in doing so are accepting the challenge climate change presents for the world and for California.
Researchers here at UC Riverside and around the state have been looking at the impact just in California over the next several decades, and what they found is alarming. Southern California is known for its beaches, but they're one of the things most at risk from climate change. That's just one of the dire warnings coming out of a new report from the California Natural Resources Agency. If action isn't taken soon, scientists predict rising ocean temperatures could cause 31 to 67% of Southern California beaches to completely erode by the year 2100.
It's time to really start adapting now to the changing climate. It's going to be much cheaper over the longer term to deal with it now as opposed to later when the consequences are more severe.
We already had a series of heat waves this summer. Scientists say more of those could be in store if regulations to control pollution and the emission of greenhouse gases aren't enacted. The worst case scenario, heat waves in cities could cause 2 to 3 times more heat-related deaths by 2050. And the average daily temperature in California could increase more than 5 to 8 degrees by the turn of the century. Then there are the threats from wildfires.
The combination of hotter and drier has really stressed our forest and resulted in our this is the second year in a row that we've had the worst fire in California's history.
The experts say without action, devastating wildfires like the Holy Fire could burn up even more land, possibly as much as 77% more land in the next several decades.
Climate change is a real problem and will present future challenges for California if not put in check. This video is a news segment from CBS published on August 28, 2018. The reporter informs the audience about alarming findings by California researchers about the effects climate change can have in the future. These effects include rising ocean temperatures, sea levels, risk of heat-related deaths, and wildfires. This shows that climate change is a real problem because these effects are very serious and can threaten the well-being of California residents. Intel has contributed tons of carbon emissions to the greenhouse effect. This graph shows the greenhouse gas emissions, energy usage, and release of PFCs, which are dangerous chemicals, into the atmosphere. By showing the trend of Intel's emissions, its effect on the environment becomes clear. With these amounts of emissions, there are great contributions to the greenhouse effect and therefore climate change as a whole. For the most part, this graph shows a downward trend until 2011 when it shoots back up. This can mean that Intel has a lot more work to do before improving their impact on the environment. Sustainable initiatives have lowered Intel's negative impact on the environment and resource depletion. This graph shows how much energy Intel used to produce its computer parts in 2007 compared to 2014. Intel ended up using half the amount of energy used before in the manufacturing of its computer parts, while also doubling in its production. This is a great example of energy efficiency, which is the idea of using less energy to do the same or greater amount of work. By implementing sustainable initiatives, Intel has attained impressive results and in turn lowered their negative impact on the environment, because less energy used in production means fewer carbon emissions in the air, contributing to climate change. Leaders of Intel believe that becoming more sustainable is a moral obligation to the rest of the world. This image shows Intel's goal of restoring all of its water use by 2025. This means that in 6 years, Intel will have replenished the world's water supply by how much it is depleted in its rich manufacturing history. By stating a goal, Intel shows that it cares about the environment. This goal also shows a degree of moral responsibility here because, in a sense, Intel is basically cleaning up a mess that was made in the past. Another piece of evidence that shows Intel cares about the environment is this quote by Ann Kelleher, Intel's Senior Vice President General Manager of Technology and Manufacturing. She states, Intel is committed to being a leader in environmental sustainability. Reducing our environmental impact not only benefits our business and our communities, but it is the right thing to do. Sustainability can prove to be costly for a company. Efficient technology that saves more energy and water has higher upfront costs than standard utilities. This graph shows the shadow cost of a natural gas boiler compared to ground source heat pumps. Although Intel does not use either of these technologies, it shows that the more sustainable choice costs more initially, but saves more money in the long haul. The more efficient technologies last longer and do not have as much of an impact on the environment, which makes up for the larger first costs. Many people argue that if a company implements sustainability, there will need to be cost cuts elsewhere, but this graph shows that this claim is wrong, and that sustainability will actually save money eventually. Some employees may never accept sustainable initiatives in thinking that it will get in the way of productivity. This graph shows where sustainability is with respect to people, profit, and the planet. When a business decides to implement sustainability, it considers all three aspects in that there is a sense of responsibility as people of the planet, along with the economic value in becoming eco-friendly. When one of these aspects becomes valued over the other, sustainability does not take effect. As employees do not accept sustainability, they only value profits by getting their job done productively in order to attain more money. With many companies not taking action against the dangers of climate change in the past, Intel has been ahead of the curve and has become one of the front runners in sustainability within the technology industry. Their actions are completely justified not only because of how climate change can affect California, but because it is morally right. Intel is cleaning up the mess that their semiconductor manufacturing has caused. Although sustainable practices pose the issue of getting in the way of employee productivity and financial well-being, the benefits of these practices outweigh the costs. Lower-level employees should understand that sustainability is just as important as productivity, and Intel seems to have figured this part out due to the results of lowering their carbon footprint while increasing their profits. With these higher profits, employees will not be negatively affected by cost reduction strategies of lowering salaries or hours. If more companies in the tech industry start to figure the problem of balancing sustainability with productivity, both the leaders of companies and their lower-level employees can benefit. Even if one does not work in the tech industry, they can still take away the idea that sustainability should be valued just as much as productivity. Without this kind of mindset, the world is doomed to face the consequences of climate change.